his eyes alone this time, Joel said, "You're probably right. I do understand and am willing to concur." "Thank you, Mr. Weber," the smiling ticket agent said before she'd reached out to, and Ms. Varvalowski, "Thank you, did I get your name right?" She must similarly find her appealing, thought Joel in consideration of the long look preceding her comment. He'd conscientiously maintained a straight and center gaze, as right as anyone could. "Yes, doll." "Great. Well, both of you enjoy the evening and have a safe flight." With her, a few words shared before the ticket agent, after servicing two more customers behind them, watched them become smaller closer to where the stewardess received and disappeared with them, the door and ramp yet left open and accessible. Extra checks were mandated, so the plane for several persons running late was late in starting out. Joel commented on never seeing Giselle as nail-bitingly nervous as he'd ever seen her, after which point he'd reminded that there was a midnight flight that they could catch as recourse and alternative. Stoving overhead items securely, Joel repositioned his body so that he could allow passage to the window seats so that he could quickly claim his aisle slot when it happened. His eyelids extremely heavy long preceding the hour they'd entered the airport, with his microscopic bottle of red-eye expunged clutch in hand, he allowed the airplane seat to swallow him whole. And, at this, another uncharted challenge that's encounter would at once, at least for the evening, smite that certain premonitions wick. Passengers let out a collective gasp when the cabin's lights short-circuited after flickering panels of light from lengthy rails finally removed any notion of sustaining dimmed lighting when the belly of the Airbus, as soon as she powered up beyond the grinding gear shift or tires unlock into a cantankerous groan, went dark. The plane yet fully powering up but poised to make it first ahead of other idling crafts to a tarmac turn on taxi mode. Her last spoken words recalled from when she'd said to him, "Joel, ain't sure what this is about, but I want to be the first one in before takeoff." She'd pointed to the rear of the plane. And before he could respond, the sputtering lights tripped again, to the animated dismay of the passengers, most of whom in frustration turned with their hands in air to tend or retrieve something from overhead belongings. Growing impatient and apologizing for leaning into a long and frothing yawn, Joel looked to his watch again, reminding himself that she'd appeared fine, although it was under the dimmed lighting and delay from the electrical mess-up. Oh, thank God. Hopefully they're on to stay this time so we can get to our destinations. The woman sitting in front of Joel said. "Excuse me, ma'am?" Joel began. "Did you happen to see the woman I was with? Brunette, your height, attractive. She boarded with me and wanted to get to the bathroom pretty quick before the lights had fully dimmed. I noticed you walking back that way a few minutes ago." And as quickly a woman, brushing up against the attendant as he went to his tiptoes to make way, pushed on through, calmly but determinedly without a word. Taxi moved with the last words to meet his ears before the conversation switched to a male passenger and the stewardess, both of whom were in front of him. His eyelids extremely heavy long preceding the hour that entered the airport, he allowed the airplane seat to swallow him, and at this, another uncharted challenge. Passengers let out a collective gasp when the cabin slides short-circuit, it only after flickering panels of light rails finally removed any notion of idling when the cabin, as soon as the plane powered up into a higher liftoff gear, went dark. The planet yet to fully power up and make it first turn on taxi moved with the last words to meet his ears before the conversation switched to a male passenger in the stewardess in front of him, both of whom were in front of him. "Looks like she's the only one back there, or was. We're clear for takeoff and wouldn't have the door open, but only she came out." "Are you referring to the woman who just pushed through wearing the hijab and headscarves? Oversized sunglasses," and he muttered, "oddly worn at night and during outage?" "No. That woman entered with a child ahead of us. Can you take a look for me? I sorta dozed off like right away, but it couldn't have been for a short few minutes at the most. She's probably just fine, but with all these disturbances and being nervous a titch, she is." Joel looked at his watch and mumbled, "Maybe more like 10, 12 minutes ago, give or take. Wouldn't delay this long, I think. Looks, is, Middle Eastern." Discreetly he nodded to a man appearing of same ethnicity right across from him and between the two conversants. Long before it occurred he knew, in fact, he knew that he knew, which did scarcely a thing to push back layers of clinging denial. He was darn sure she even flashed a wave at him before on the tarmac jumping into the black vehicle, one he thought he'd seen before. The women in the hijab at the point of speedily swinging into the passenger seat while saying a quick hello to the driver who you couldn't behind that tinting sea. She removed her head scarving and Joel, mostly deaf to the voices reminding him that the plane was taxiing out and only seconds away from lifting into the air. They'd heard him from sheets to the wind and 1,000 miles away, in where they ended mouthing the words, "Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!" repeating several times until, slowly resolving to at a snail's pace while still peering outside of the plane's ship's portal oval window. Over its wing as he backed up toward the seat that's bay he now owned. Several steps after the car with the remarkable gleam from its meticulous polishing whisked away before faithfully angling mindlessly therein. His thoughts hosting myriad hypotheses racking up against his any cognitive grasp and madly racing as his facial aspect twisted, distorted his sight and then melted. It's, he swallowed hard and only blankly peeled his gaze off of the window to train it on the stewardess. Really, it's okay. It's okay. We won't be in the least hold these up. He flashed a gaze toward the heads of the passengers. We have a schedule to keep, yeah? Knowing who he was before the moment meant to fathom the depths of his grappling unrest now as his stricken voice catch and his tone disassembled inside of his throat. The plane started to roll and then to vector. Are you sure? These ladies must have been in this situation once before, the thought flashed through his mind only fleetingly. Should we ask the pilot to wait? Feeling his pupils fully dilate on what streamed inside of that portal window, he simply stared, aghast, and, trained to maximize what he could in the least bit minimalism, he was beyond flummoxed as some word that the Prime Minister had shared with him in Israel flashed through his mind. Over the wing, having watched her, feeling the tension in his toes when standing taller to peer over it as the bird's wing slowly and mechanically cut across the side of the vehicle. Infraction number 1. And number 2? Well, she cheesily smiled and waved at him while unfolding like the accordion and disappearing inside of the passenger side seat. With that final last wave after the vehicle 3-point turned and brought a glimpse of the trouser legs of the man's aspect in view, she flashed it, the badge. Bad news for her? She thinks it's me in that photo there? The spanning shadow widening over top of it, the trapezoid-shaped wing tapered to a thinner slant and then she disappeared, revealing them in composite full-eyes lens again as the engine reverened up and began to scream. From miles away he mouthed, far from knowing on the moment why she'd flashed again when flashed she determinedly in that outstretched other hand, crossing across her upper torso to reveal the outstretched newspaper rolled up into a cone. Tapping against it with the passport still clutched in that once waving right hand. Soon enough he would discover its implicating relevance. The below's redundant. No, He trailed, stared at the floor blankly and then from that place 1,000 miles away from him he without mindful design rubbed at his chin, switching loose grasping positions with his forceps grabbing fingers and then became painfully overly aware of it from the stewardess's vantage point, as he imagined looking into the mirror for a second. She's jumping into that black limo outside with a bag of mine. That would be pointless. He fades into the seat, small quarter steps drifting backwards, feeling atop of seat's tops and mindlessly tapping instead of looking to where he would lifelessly plunge and give up his inelastic girth. She's gone. 15 minutes later he wouldn't feel the blow at the back of his head, as determined as 'twas by a certain few passengers set that he was for sure the plane's marshal with his striker and at least one other now in the cockpit knowing fully well according to what Giselle knew and shared about him. Only a good 15 minutes later he would find his feet while the passengers were kept in their seats by the man, Joel's first target, racing up and down the aisle, waving what looked like a Colt 45 in the air, angrily pointing it at a few with a daring look in their eyes. The short-circuiting lights to the overhead compartment rail flickered several times again, powered down, and, Joel, he seized his occasion and in his mind proverbially left the top of the snow-capped mountain slope. And that quickly his leisure flight had just become a business detail. There was a disturbance in the front of the plane, the cockpit door repeatedly, the sense was, slamming so hard against its hinges that the echo could be heard throughout the cabin. Inside of the curtain there were obvious signs of which those in first class required no convincing, inside of the ruffling curtain as though wind wrought immobile imperceivable signs of a scuffle. The passengers told to keep calm and to remain in their seats, and, another flashback in real time to another incident over same US sky, the hijacker in the front tripping the Airbus intercom and PA also managed to radio into JFK Airport's ATC back where they'd handed over boarding passes. What they heard was jumbled. Unclear and articulated only through static streams, the passengers, as did Joel, heard what an unintended address making reference to the, quote, US coordinates and best alternate route to the embassy in Israel. This man articulated sound English and had purposed to pull off his best impersonation of the pilot who'd warmed the seat ahead of him, having paid close attention to this for the briefest per second, before taking the blades and swiveling nunchucks with the skill of the samurai with his sword to take out the masquerading pilots. These men, their brains at least as vice-gripped by Hussein digital assault and infestation, allowing them to sensibly reason only so far, either chancing a gamble or not in consensus on determination to for certain meet with their overseas target. Correct beyond her means and intellect, but the damnable unto death was Joel Webber's grim charge and reality yet ahead. He's, either as Joel Webber or Dalton Weaver, the latter habitually as if by choice ensnared by means of his convocation, been through many great travails, some of which presented him as one with the knack and insatiable propensity of inscrutable proportions. Such travails and experiences where bread and breaths were as rationed as was empathy, a propensity for what? For cheating death. This is often the case with sharply trained persons of unprivate accesses behind the diamond-shaped signs on fences and barricaded roadway who are given to randomly dismantle, disrupt, intrude, infiltrate and sabotage by defying anything that the universities or streets could teach a man or woman to make understandable for us the art of their craft. Still did she have only enough information recovered at Joel's apartment that August morning to conclude that at best most dangerous was he, and as an informant of the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation and at least 3 other agencies, and one a particular taunt to her as widow-making with estate liquidating propensities, which, to his sharpened acumen befriending determination, was he convinced in a way that he couldn't thoroughly imagine. Once again was he overlooked as a man thrice lethal. One who'd suddenly advantaged the mind defying frigate advantage. She'd overlooked what had rendered him as true threat by offering in a sense the keys inside of the enemy's vault of forbidden secret things, explosive things to understate it. And our conniving Jacob with one hand not informing of the undisclosed affairs of the sleuth other. And, in super sleuth fashion, knowing on same other side of barbed wire detainment. A third temple sabotage and devastation with a mind-numbing rapture as the united assembly of the faithful that he had not one of his but one of God's chief reasons to remain alive and to remain engaged in the fullness of his any faculty.
At the end of the story.
If a kill committee were to come after him, they'd have to break through his firewall that, or who, he named Yeshua, the Messiah, same committee, had said he that day, having the unmitigated non-pleasure that was an ability to promote him. Still was it Joel's choice reality to be himself fed by the same concealing hand wherein only thought he. A man with blood on his hands, still somehow yet not detected by the universal spirit and radar gun seeking out guile characteristic in the earth. To contain at times the full story and destination to a certain path only where he knew that God in whose fold he traversed knew full well his methods and ways more perfectly and did in fact often design them. So he, and just like the deceiving woman whose greatest deceit was pulled off against her, knew only the half story. The fact that Joe found himself asking what can be more unto a doom greater than the interment can't life, and should and then a sense was she had a clue without perfect shape to him, scarcely a mind trick or illusory thing but at times a seizing trepidation in a matter of relevance that he knew it was his web work to weave out of or hone into. He'd shared, unless a man or woman is standing in heaven's corridor or fares as does one of Belshazzar Daniel's friends under Nebuchadnezzar's judgment in Babylon. An angel doesn't by law administerium angelic or human crank open a cage and let you out to say, now sit down. Rest easy on your laurels. The full providential all is completed because your travails do end. The preordained on you completed. May be more likely to say that God might say to me, one prison door is behind thou closed, but that Pandora's box conundrum opened unto my will fulfilled still is yet ahead, a journey a destination walked in reverse. He'd smitten many a wick and sabotaged plates the world, even stopped many a missile, either from off-site intel and with controls or directly, for meeting with its intended target. Many a wick and sabotaged plates the world, even stopped many a missile. Either from off-site intel and with controls or directly, for meeting with its intended target. He'd scarcely if given 1,000 years to plot out worst life in case scenario scripts could have conceived that he would literally be locked inside as human missile himself. Again, we've heard of such. The pilot. Blood from his mouth, sleeping corners depend on his side by some invisible weight or physically incapacitated.
She's waving to him from
on
off
a
the
dying
phone,
breath,
that's
apparently to Joel,
labored
labored he, dressing the man who stormed through the door yet unlocked just before using the knife to sever the leather strap from over shoulder with one quick move before he dropped the same knife to use hands. Same unlocked door conveniently left ajar. Unless you have an assassin who can also, he was fading out and fast. Also fly a commercial jet airliner. The man on his next exhalation. He pointed to the perfect image of a repeat haunting memory into the minds as indelibly as was a series of explosions on 1940s Pearl Harbor. There's your, he choked again with Joel scarcely hearing his words, there's your 20th hijacker and your. Fate's like my co-pilot, his body stepped over, it's in his hands.
The fight
he lost his final battle that was resisting the gravity pull against his thin neck. Joel's 2 non-issues. He with words shouted out in Arabic perceivably heard in the least is the look of rage in his eyes was under a look of unbridled fear, and the 2 unsuspecting men was how that he might get the men out of their seat belts as fast and forcefully as he could and as viciously as Mud or Lioness while defending her cups at mealtime. And, although it's been a while, his subsequent move wouldn't comparison beyond and non-event maybe in time to be celebrated outside of himself. This latter detail and material which was good as it hadn't like a lightning bolt flashed through his mind as had these certain impulse notions the flitter just quickly as might liquid mercury across a hot skillet. This was close combat without restraint or premeditation, the revisit of years of training and deployment of skilled techniques, and the fact that he must remain in control to commandeer what he could handle scarcely to enter his mind. It would involve certain and unforgiving loss of physics and navigational details. Okay, Lithuania. Just a quick radio frequency check. Emirates 14903, JFK, we're sending, from the tablet. Emirates 14903, JFK, we're ascending.
There's a
Affirmative.
file.
You heard the
that was
disturbance.
abrupt. There's
A
something
scuffle will
missing
say
there.
it's called our lucky day with the right
Where
guy
there's a
given the
scuffle.
situation behind the gears. I am with
From,
Moss.
traffic
You
control.
might call me a civilian just to say I'm not with your airline or any airborne
this
fleet
was
today
messed with.
scheduled. I am in control of the plane. Your pilots are down one, maybe with fatal. Whoa. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. I have to get you on one-way dedicated.
Some
Given the
names driving
situation,
along on
that's
here.
if I heard you correctly, that's how I view
Knocking her
affirm
off.
in less than 30-40 seconds.
her.
First question posed to Joel on that line. Not quite sure what he heard as trailing word before the switch was arranged was, to clarify. Are you reporting a hijacking? Okay, fantastic, Emirates. Persons getting back to their original homelands, sure you heard. So we've got lots of planes in the air so we can kinda taxi you in out front. Have an assistant answer the line, phone's ringing now for relay, then patch in. I think that's it. Please clarify or expound only then. Thank you. JFK. Actual navigation. As if the plane were cradled between the arms of mighty angels commandeering from the outside, with the exception of a terrible series of bumps in a seeming weird readjustment of the plane that would skirt coarsely sideways, rewriting itself as quickly as the forceful pull seemed to jar and stammer and kick. Quicker? Was the one pilot airlifted himself, in form pinned at the neck after being bum-rushed by Joel after slicing in one motion that seatbelt. A swift remorseful kick to the head knocked the other pilot forward and out cold before, by the boots was he by two other men dragged just outside of the cockpit, Joel manipulating gears and observing flight panel readouts, he as coolly as one could mouth words only to himself with certain barely discernible noises made between them, he with fierce determination in his eyes. Pulsating, sore and seeming to breathe asphyxiating breaths, glanced over his shoulder while holding it up in the air as two female and one male attendant as though reluctantly stepped forward to take the longest look at the passport before reaching up to grab a hold of it. They are amongst the deceased with one fading in and out of consciousness. I think alive but, fading. Alive with his eyes closed, he turned and quickly looked toward each of the two pilots assigned to the flight, readjusting, and, turning toward a staff member, please keep calm for me so that you can keep the passengers seeing the fiasco calm. I'll be in communication with ATC throughout national airspace. Just as quickly Joel took the radio call, or thought he had. Emirates 14903, said the voice from the radio, you were given the clear to ascend, please radio back and ident.
That comes first.
I hear only static and some kind of disturbance. Same controller said after another call to him went unanswered, Lithuanian 176Z, JFK, New York. Do you read me? To which came back the cool and collective voice report, Lithuania 176Z, affirmative, JFK. I hear you loud and clear. Crystal clear. Reading you just fine. Okay, Lithuania. Just a quick radio frequency check. Emirates 14903, JFK, we're sending, from the tablet. Emirates 14903, or 3, JFK, if memory serves and... If memory serves? The pinnacle of the incredulous tone, only wearing a uniform that couldn't become ruffled, trailing on tonal upswing, and more tersely ATC added in painstakingly enunciated tones, do I have Emirates 14903 on the line with me? He might as well have added damn it. New York, ATC. We are ascending. Affirmative. And you heard the disturbance. A scuffle will say, ending very badly for a few persons. As I said, our lucky day, think of it, with the right guy given the situation behind the gears. You might call me a civilian just to say I'm not with your airline or any airborne fleet today scheduled, but you can rest easy and maybe assist me to rest a titch easier,
This is
honestly.
Moss.
I am in control of the plane. Your pilots are,
facade.
he paused, choosing an alternate word, down, a hijacking.
I just put that in there today.
One of them with fatal.
I
Whoa.
noticed that it was missing
Hold
somewhere
on.
else.
Hold on. Hold on. Joel heard more than one voice in the background and what he thought might have been a microphone pulling away from its boom. We are. Yes, okay, we have to get you on one-way dedicated. Given the situation, that's if I heard you correctly and so that I can confirm this. Less than 40 seconds, the phone somewhere behind and just to your right. Need someone to answer that for me. First question posed to Joel on that line, not quite sure what he heard as trailing word before the switch was arranged was, to clarify, Emirates. Are you reporting a hijacking? Affirmative. Real-world transmission. This isn't, I repeat, this is not procedural drill and certainly not a hoax. A hijacking and physical assault gone bad for the hijackers this evening. At least 2 of a possible 3 dead. You'll have to return me there, JFK, or somewhere else. Continue on CC then? Fine, but I think I'll require an actual commercial pilot. The pilots are, I think for certain the one is, among the deceased and the other is falling in and out of consciousness I think. Kinda don't have my wherewithal all about me just yet. Where's the damn marshal? Didn't think it optional to delay and take account or anything. Exemplary. Your staff, I mean, or airlines. They were quick to find a medic on board, passengers at ease. All else is fine aside from what I'd mentioned, just shy of peachy keen. Okay, fantastic, Emirates. Here's the plan. The man was talking over his shoulder again, answering another person or person's questions. A horrible time to get caught in a situation like this, and maybe, the guys talk and, here, maybe somebody knew that. Persons getting back to their original homelands, sure you heard, so we've got lots of planes in the air, ACA congestion, so we wanna kinda taxi you from in front, kinda tail light you in. Have an assistant answer the line, phone's ringing now for relay so can patch directly in again. Please clarify or expound only then. Thank you. JFK. Cruise controlling me and then in rear? Ain't what I signed up for with the agent, but that's fine, assuming you have my flight cost. That would be great, Joel said through an exasperated sigh of relief still meant to sound lighter on the other end. I've a serious request that you take your time but do hurry up. As was the stewardess, who was attempting to conceal the quivering tone while calling to the passengers again, having fumbling twice with the passport before recovering it from the floor. And mere seconds later from that same dedicated line while ATC was arranging for direct connection with Joel alone, the latter turned to address one of the stewardesses, uncertain as they were closer to the rear of the cockpit, several feet behind him. Can you snap and transmit that? She gestured while Joel thought it doubtful that she'd heard or understood him. Turning to face the dark sky again, ATC, JFK. Listen, I think it's really just you and me. Understandably a climate of serious distress in here. Can I have someone identity verify me there, JFK, by calling this number, through the stewardess? He'd given the phone number to her. It's Dalton Weaver. And he spelled it. I think I heard the attendant giving you the number from my passport, which is an identity badge, is going to transmit your people to Israel for verification. I think I said it already, but the hijackers. I think your stewardess was able to identify where they were sitting, so, 2 of them. Looks far eastern to me. Just snapped a quick look to the men, or the one who could still be seen with the male attendant bending over top of him and pulling out of a jacket his passport. Stepping forward ever timidly as though approaching a cobra, and with his own trembling fingers managing to secure it, finally just to entrancingly with rapidly blinking eyes examine it. And I heard the rest of it. Joel continued, for the first time since taking the controls, widely smiling yet feigning tedious annoyance. It was clear on the other end. No, Joel is neither the name of the hijacker or hitchhiker. And yes, I speak Arabic. Time for that later. Again, your lucky day. The chaps had a mind to say howdy for a second there when I recited words from their prayer. 2 of them, Far Eastern ethnicity, bum-rushed by at least one of them clear back by the craft's wings where my seats were, lost consciousness myself for a short minute. Joel, while rubbing atop the rear of his head, snapped a quick gander toward the men, or the one who could, and with his trembling fingers managing to secure it finally just to entrancingly before attempting to with rapidly blinking eyes as if to chase back disorienting blur read its writing. It's him. The attendant was rubbing it still while taking a closer look at the photo of one of the hijackers. He'd meant the photo and appearance of the man was a match. No, more than likely no, it's his passport. To the same attendant, Joel, with the aid of hand gesture that's directive wasn't clear, said, "Can I have you grab co-pilot for me?" And confusedly the man started half stepping over to the co-pilot, downed against the floor, his foot visible to Joel from inside the cockpit. No, I meant the co-pilot seat right here next to me. Seconds later the floor space of the cockpit was cleared. Okay, The air traffic controller began, elongating the word's tail end syllable with his voice muffled while he again shared a word with someone at ATC, New York. I understand you fly MiGs. Is this correct? No, I mean, yes, 2 or 3 times, the nature of which is classified. Who shared that? Joel, mostly to himself, exclaimed through a tinge of a pestered tone without waiting for a reply. So you've got him on the line then? I am not a pilot, however, and this is different though. Another beast, and the weather is bad and seems to be getting worse. How we doing on my lead guy? I'm thinking cruise through the cabin, ask if we have a pilot on board as we had the medic. Better for them to arrive safely with a few questions than the grisly answer, I think. As discreetly as we can, maybe better. Do you think who you have in air might appreciate a clinic through this? Rejoin bandwidth common air, I mean. JFK, New York. Probably not a good idea. Joel heard the reply ahead of time. Luckily it was arranged that I could direct patch you in again to me. Oh, Malaysia, 6418. JFK Control. Requesting a firm 40 degrees IGHT, please. Looks good. We're gonna keep clear of Emirates. Incident radioed a few minutes ago over common. To which came back, Malaysia, 6418, veering right and lifting. Sounds like you've got that under control. Good luck. Looks like we'll be landing through a broth. Can't he lead me in, JFK? That's negative. We've got you with another inbound en route. He's out and you're holding steady, I see. Keep her under max speed and they'll be much appreciated. Yeah, maybe one of the reasons for the request. Ain't sure what these birds can take. Assuredly ATC replied, ha ha, you're an ace up there and going smooth, several us watching. And won't require a scramble or intercept, thank God. Less than 5 minutes and you're in tow, 10-4? 10-4? What'll you have after landing? Setting out again or require chauffeur assistance to the hotel? No. A double martini wouldn't hurt much though. Joel, steeped in anticipatory circumspection, said, it's only us on this line then? I'd still feel lots better if you can air escort me in. How far away is he? And so after accommodating the request the plane caught up with Joel Airlines and led the way back to JFK, El Al with the assist for taxiing him in. Good evening, ATC JFK New York. El Al 1367. Just a quick question. The suspenseful pause and tone of voice preparing the climate for levity. Is he a free agent? So immediately the El Al pilot stumbled upon something. Ain't sure about the free part. Oops, Emirates 14903. Figured as much there, Emirates. Ha ha. El Al, ATC NY. El Al continued, I've got a VACA coming up and in generation apocalypse can't find someone to cover for me and just in time. Pilots frequency-wide depressed the call button to both congratulate the adjunct pilot and to cackle at the comment. What a slush bar. Oh, and with fireworks as usual. Glad we'd just passed through without incident. As good a night as any to speak for yourself, I guess. Emirates said. The man in the black car's passenger seat said, looking back, so you slipped into the plane and made like a phantom on the tarmac. Jumping in with us. Zhu following orders, gentlemen. Thanks for the ride. Are you auditioning for a Hollywood movie or something and career in acting or just trying to telegraph your next movie in your next covet mission? To which the driver said, yeah, what to tell the Prime Minister when the entire planet calls him to ask of the whereabouts of one Dalton Weaver? He'll thank me later, trust me, after I affix her signature to the forged papers. You didn't hear me say that though. I just got access into the facility under the auspiciously delivered ID info. Cakewalk from here, fellas. Her signature? Who's her and gain access into where? The portal of hell? You might say that but I'd say worse. Worse than hell? Where, pray tell? I think it's way of cooling down. Long flight and all. The driver offered a wink that was lit up by a rearview light snapped onto the mirror. Seriously though, Weaver? Serious as brain surgery. Our secret, gentlemen. Besides, we're literally at large on borrowed time. Enjoying the apocalypse much? Sweating and evidencing that he'd been profusely sweating, Joel leaned forward to tap the two men off the shoulders. Confidential, boys, matter of fact, and was this a guile form? I was just kidding. The hotel, gentlemen, I have an international to catch either tonight or red-eye tomorrow. I might hold off until I can take a look-see at some video footage real quick. I was told not to but I wasn't asked to taxi a commercial airliner in myself neither. I swear, I've encountered the one crashing down on my head over there. Ain't sure who, where. But yeah, heading to Israel probably on the same aircraft that towed me in, hopefully with its own pilot. Geez me knees. I gats, son of a bleep and all the rest. Joel darn near downed the entire bottle of polar water on that desperate chug, miraculously not drowning therein as his eyes while pouring down the hatch almost sparkled with a sweaty glimmer through the bottle. Giselle her name is, Joel lied, averting his eyes and holding a steady numb gaze at nothing in particular outside the back driver's side-tinted window, and, leaving a flurry of questions since asked him answered, he revived, she dropped the passport. It wasn't handed off to her hijacking accomplices but was dropped in front of him. What in the Sam hell? A self-reward for his heroic deed, he pocketed both the passport of the hijacker and the passport of the one Aisha Katya Maya Mamani, a new name to learn to go with a most familiar face, the glossy photo with golden-colored raised encoded letters and numbers streamed stamped that was itself encrypted behind lamination. Around the perimeter of the oval-shaped photo, all the more bringing to the forefront who was pictured therein as suddenly the focus of his attention back there. As if he were along in the car, he mouthed through a hushed tone, "Damn, almost went there with her." He gestured like a person suffering in throes of withdrawal for a second, alternating tight loops with both arms alternating as might a tennis player on a steamy day while bouncing the ball in preparation of her serve. The men watching him, unclear whether it was sweat or something else in his eyes that had suddenly become the predominant focal zone in the shadowy rear of the government-issue vehicle. The heat of the numbing moment seeming to only internally reach him all at once, as if he were additionally and subconsciously thawing or de-icing a chill. A long overdue sigh he'd finally released, highly likely one to larger benefit persons watching him instead of serving as sign of his own relief. Maybe because beyond the surface layer of consideration of what had just transpired, he'd imagined how that the same sigh was being without question shared collectively across the ocean in Israel by US Embassy personnel in Israel and others where the emergency meeting was slated, only short hours from beginning. Between those assembled for this unprecedented gathering amongst certain nations, with undoubtedly some individuals still spying out for the dangerously elusive Nasser Abu Madda Hussein in attendance in some form and the lodging facilities, the many lives on this evening for one man to thank for there being another day to live. Access into the portal of hell, Lee Joel repeated as though ruminating in hopes of landing a perfect symbolic encapsulating word for the phrase. So you're off on another mission? Save the world for us? Maybe we'll drop in and pay you a visit? What parts? Beirut again? Damn, you got my blood type too. No, you won't recognize me there, at least not on paper. Hopefully that's all. Matter of fact, although I just got my passport authenticated by her, neither would she, and certainly not they recognize me. Trust me, I shan't explain. And trust me, we ain't gonna complain about that. Life's sweet ironies in happy accidents. Happy for you, maybe. No. Much prefer to keep my hands clean while chauffeuring that many souls in that plane, you know? In the plane? You saved the targets too, friend. Hell of a man. Good luck, keep in your cover now. Ain't sure how I would've worked that. Anyway, have yourself a drink back there. Steal all the limelight of the Abubu monster. Better duck, wherever you're off to, Weaver.